Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm reviewing these acrylic paint markers that Woomer sent me. Instead of just swatching every color individually, I'll be doing a swatch and sketch, which is just testing each color by doodling something. I got this idea from another creator here on YouTube, and I'll link her video below if you want to check it out. So each marker has a label on top with a color name. So for this red one, it's R269. All of the markers have these labels, and they're labeled by the primary color it derives from. When I began this exercise, I began by sketching with a pencil because I definitely wanted to have more control over my spread. I was thinking very pictorially, and I just wasn't feeling very confident. Keeping up a physical sketchbook practice makes me feel kind of rusty because it's not typically what I do day to day. And of course, old habits die hard. I couldn't shake the worry that I would mess up the first page and ruin the whole spread. But as you'll see, once I got through that first page, I relaxed and let things flow more freely instead of trying to plan the perfect doodle session. Beside each doodle, I wrote the color name for easy reference later, but honestly, I'm not sure yet how useful this will be. I'm curious to see if these doodle swatches will help me with planning a larger illustration in the future, but either way, they were a fun way to explore color in context. Now, I have a better sense of how I actually may use these colors in a larger piece, especially given just how many colors came in this pack of markers. There were 72 to try. Okay, so this is kind of where I ended up. I'm going to just do a quick flip through. There were like 6 different trays of markers, so I have about 6 different pages full of these little sketch doodles, which were all really quite fun to make. As I got closer to the end, I let go of like planning the page spread, and I just literally just doodled with the markers. And I actually quite like this spread the most because of that. It's quite calming and pleasing to just look at. I really don't have anything too negative to say about these markers. I really enjoyed using them, but I am going to just talk briefly about the pros and cons, and I'll divide this video up into chapters for easy viewing. So starting with the pros, I do really like the brush tip on these guys. It is really nice. It really glides across the surface of your paper, and the application feels really buttery. Just to show one more time, I'll just put a little swatch here. They're just so smooth and buttery, so that makes them quite enjoyable to me to use. They don't feel like they're dry or I'm trying to force pigment out of them. Again, the nib is really soft, which I think adds to that feeling of it just gliding across the surface of your paper. And of course, along with that, I think the color payoff is really great. The colors are super vibrant. Also, I will say this is a pro for me specifically, but I like that I don't have to pump these markers. I do have a set of acrylic markers, which are my Uniposca markers, and using those does require that you pump the marker, so pushing the nib down on your paper or work surface to draw the pigment out. With these, you don't have to do that. It's kind of just like a regular marker. Another thing that I really enjoyed was that it also works really well on different surfaces. Obviously they're great on paper, but I also have been using these markers on polymer clay. Here's a little clay guy I made. This is Bucky Bear, and I sculpted him in another video if you want to watch that whole process. But yeah, all of the details on this little hipper minus the cheeks were done with these markers. And then to cap off all of the pros, I do really like the large color variety in this set. I mentioned before there's 72 colors, and I think that just provides a really broad range for different types of projects and illustrations. There's some really gorgeous deep colors that even got me kind of thinking about doing more cool toned illustrations. I'm obviously someone who generally gravitates to warmer palettes, but I really like this page and this one as well. The colors just feel calm, literally for a lack of a better term. They're just cool. I like them. I think I have a natural association with cool colors being cold, and when I typically am illustrating, I'm always thinking about how to make my illustrations feel warm and cozy, like a springtime vibe or like a nice fall day. But this really genuinely got me curious about using more cool tones in my work. So as for some cons, I'm gonna just put this aside for a second. So as for cons, I'm not a big fan of this case. As I was unboxing it, one of the clasps snapped off, which was really frustrating because the whole concept of this case is that you're able to snap all of these trays together, just like this, and then attach the top, which you'll notice has this carrying handle. In theory, you're supposed to just be able to carry your markers like this, but unfortunately, because one of the clasps snapped off, I have this issue in where the bottommost tier is kind of just hanging loose from the rest of the case. So that's unfortunate. I have to kind of slide my hand under when I pick up these markers just to make sure that the bottommost tray isn't crashing to the floor, which I like the idea of this storage case. It's just not very durable. So if you get this, just be aware that the case might be a little flimsy and you might want to find alternative storage for it. It's not really a deal breaker for me though, because the markers themselves are really wonderful. Another thing that I thought might be worth pointing out, I don't know if this is like a hard con, but I noticed that lighter colors like white and peach tend to soak into the color beneath them. And this could potentially just be because it wasn't dry, but I wanted to create like a little detail in this pot. And this is the swatch for this little design here, which to me, I think is a little bit more opaque than this. It's not awful, but I guess I would have liked for it to be a little bit more matte on top of this paint. So if you're layering these markers, it might require multiple layers to build up the opacity of the color. I also tried this out again in another spot in my sketchbook. I wanted to get an idea of like how these markers layer, because I am someone who likes to have kind of an underpainting that peeks through in my work. So this is like a red underpainting. I just did like red, including the calyx here. And then for this one, it's a yellow underpainting. So you can, I think it's pretty clear there's like a cool versus warm tone shift between these two. I also think the more pigmented colors behave differently when you layer them. I did notice the green picked up a lot of the red underneath, while the yellow underpainting barely showed through. It kind of just peeks out here and there versus this one to the left. So if you're working on a larger piece, I'd recommend testing how colors layer on some scrap first before you really commit. So this is simultaneously a pro and a con, depending on who you are, what your preference is. But because these markers don't require pumping, if you pick up another color on the brush tip, you do have to kind of just clean it off, which is what I did down here. I wanted to test what it was like to mix colors, and while mixing, I just kind of cleaned my brushes off until they became more of, you know, their true pigment, which actually kind of leads me into my last con. I don't know that you would need to do a lot of mixing, especially with just how many colors are in this pack, but I wanted to test it out anyways, and I don't know that I really liked the result. So I mixed the red and green together to make this kind of muted brown. And I was also testing out red and pink here. I noticed some pilling from the paper, even though I am using a pretty thick multimedia sketchbook. And it's very well possible this is just a paper issue, but it's worth noting if you plan to blend or layer heavily, there is potential for pilling, which I'll actually just demonstrate because I don't know if this will really show on camera too well. So I'm gonna mix blue and green. Oh, okay, that's surprising. It didn't pill that time. With the red and green color down here, it did pill. So maybe it's just how much you try to pack onto the page. Again, the set is so large that you probably won't have to mix colors often, but I would just be careful of that. This is the blend between the two, which I think I probably could do a little bit more with blending these, but just to kind of give you an arbitrary illustration of what it would be like to blend two colors, this is kind of where you end up. So overall, I really liked working with these markers. In fact, I feel like this is really going to be the thing that brings me back to working traditionally, because working with these markers was just so much fun. It's a great set of markers. I really had a blast just like doodling, and I really enjoyed this sketch and swatch exercise, to be honest. It kind of let my mind just be a little bit more free and explorative. So if you'd like to pick up a set of these markers to try for yourself, they'll be linked below in the description, which will include a discount code for 15% off. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this inspired you to also try swatching your supplies in a more creative way and potentially add some new supplies to your art supply arsenal. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!